Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. Prisons, they're just there. A fact of life, right? We see them on the news, in movies, but have you ever really, truly stopped to question them? Today, we're going to dig into how this massive system of incarceration became our default answer for so many of society's biggest problems. And our guide for this journey is this incredibly powerful book, Are Prisons Obsolete, by the scholar and activist Angela Ye Davis. And honestly, she asks a question that's so simple on the surface, but it's one of those questions that once you hear it, it kind of sticks with you. It can completely change how you look at everything. So let's just dive right in with that big, provocative idea. What if the solution to crime wasn't a building at all? Seriously, think about that for a second. This one question, it's the key that unlocks this entire conversation. All right, so the unquestioned prison, a system, not a solution. You see, the first big hurdle we have to get over is just how normal prisons seem. They're so deeply embedded in our society that they feel completely natural, almost inevitable. It's like, of course we have prisons, right? And that very feeling is what makes it so hard to even begin to imagine a world without them. Okay, so to really get our heads around this, Davis gives us a crucial term, the prison industrial complex. And look, this is way more than just buildings with bars on the windows. It's this huge, tangled web connecting all sorts of players. We're talking about corporations making money off of prison labor, governments who get votes by being tough on crime, and even media outlets that profit from sensational stories. It's this whole ecosystem that has a vested interest in more prisons. It literally feeds itself. And this leads to a pretty radical idea she presents. She says, and I'm quoting here, punishment has to be conceptually severed from its seemingly indissoluble link with crime. Whoa. Okay, let's unpack that. What she's saying is we have to break that automatic connection in our minds. Crime happens, so punishment must follow. We've been conditioned to see them as a package deal. But what if the system of punishment has its own reasons for existing that have absolutely nothing to do with making us safer? So that brings us to our next section, the hidden patterns, where we're going to deconstruct this system. Because you got to ask, right? How did this thing get so big and so powerful? Well, to figure that out, we have to look at the hidden currents that are actually driving it. Yeah, see, the key takeaway here is that none of this is random. The explosive growth of the prison system isn't some accident. It's being pushed forward by these incredibly powerful forces, economic forces, historical forces that most of us never even see or think about. And let me just throw a number at you that, honestly, it's staggering. By the late 1990s, data showed that nearly 1 out of every 3 young Black men was caught up in the system somehow, either in prison, on parole, or on probation. Let that sink in. 1 in 3. And the book makes it crystal clear a number like that is not an accident. It's a legacy. What we're seeing is a direct line from a much longer history of racial control in America. It's evolved, from slavery to segregation, and this is its modern form. Race isn't just some side effect of the prison system. It is baked into its very DNA. And it's not only a story about race. We're seeing huge shifts when it comes to gender, too. I mean, check this out. While the whole prison population has skyrocketed, the rate for women has grown even faster than for men. To put some numbers on it, right after World War II, the rate was about 8 women per 100,000. Today, it's 51. That is a massive jump, and it shows you just how much gender is a part of this story. And, of course, you have to follow the money. This whole system has a powerful economic engine. The book lays out how private companies have a huge financial stake in having more and more prisons. Think about it. Imprisoned people are a source of incredibly cheap labor. They're a captive market. So you end up with this really perverse incentive to keep the prison population growing, regardless of whether it actually does anything to improve public safety. Okay, next up, the central metaphor. A warehouse for social problems. So, if this system isn't really about justice, then what is it for? Well, Davis gives us this one central image, a metaphor that just ties everything together perfectly. Okay, so let's start here. Think about the really tough problems we face as a society. Poverty, mental health crises, failing schools. The book points out something that feels obvious once you hear it. Prisons don't solve any of those problems, not a single one. What they do is they remove them from our sight. They're a convenient way for us, as a society, to take these super complex issues and, more importantly, the people struggling with them, and just put them away, out of sight, out of mind, hidden behind walls. And that's it. That is the core metaphor right there. Prisons have become warehouses for humanity, a dumping ground. They're where we store the people and the problems that our society has failed, so that we don't have to confront our own failures.
So let's move to our final section, the final challenge, imagining new terrains. Because once you start seeing prisons as these flawed warehouses instead of some inevitable solution, something really important happens. It cracks open the door to imagining something totally different, a whole new way of thinking about justice.
Now, this is so important to understand. When the book talks about abolition, it's not just about, tearing down buildings overnight. It's a creative act. It's about building a society that doesn't need those buildings in the first place. It means reinvesting in things that actually create safety, like good schools, accessible mental health care, and ways of dealing with harm that focus on healing, not just punishment. So in the end, the book leaves us all with this huge and honestly pretty urgent question to wrestle with. If what we have now isn't working, if it isn't true justice, then what does that actually look like? And maybe more importantly, what are we, all of us, willing to do to build it? For the full long-form deep dive into this book and its ideas, follow the link in the description. If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.